Fear. It's this primal, universal human thing, right? But what if our entire understanding of where fear comes from is, well, just plain wrong? Today, we're not digging into a modern study. Instead, we're going way back to an ancient psychological case study from over 2,000 years ago that gives us a radical blueprint for understanding and maybe even overcoming fear. So let's dive into this ancient blueprint together. So our story kicks off with a challenge. It's from a Brahmin named Jānussoṇi to the man who would later become the Buddha. And what he says, man, it just captures this timeless anxiety we all have, that fear of the unknown, symbolized here by a deep, dark forest. He literally sees the forest as a predator, a force that actively steals your mind. We've all been there, right? The dark alley, the empty house, that rustling sound in the bushes. And this is where everything changes. Instead of arguing about how dangerous the forest is, the Buddha asks a way more radical question. What if the real threat isn't out there at all? What if the terror we feel isn't an attack from the outside, but a projection from the inside? A demon we actually summon all by ourselves. Now, to really get how huge his eventual insight was, you have to understand where he started. At first, the Buddha, who at this point is still a seeker on his path, he completely agrees with the Brahmin. He doesn't dismiss this really common fear. In fact, he totally validates it. He says, so it is, Brahmin. He's basically saying, you're right. These places are hard to endure. Solitude is tough. And for a mind that's all over the place, the forest is a genuinely terrifying place. He acknowledges that universal feeling of fear before he starts to take it apart. And that shared starting point is exactly what makes his next move so absolutely revolutionary. Because right after he agrees, his focus does this massive 180-degree turn. He shifts from the world out there to the landscape in here. He starts to suspect that maybe, just maybe, the fear isn't a property of the forest, but a product of the person who's walking into it. And this slide just nails the two opposing views. On one hand, you've got the conventional wisdom. The forest is the predator, and fear is something that happens to us. But the Buddha's hypothesis was totally different. Fear is something we actively generate from within. He started to think that people with these internal impurities, things like guilt, anger, or just a restless mind, they basically splash paint their own inner demons all over the outside world. The ancient text actually has this amazing word for it, Bhayabheravasutta. Bhaya is that sharp intake of breath, that immediate sense of danger. And bhavera is the trembling dread that follows. But here's the crucial part. It's not defined as some monster in the woods. Nope. It's defined as an unskilled internal state, an event that we ourselves call up when our own minds are a mess. So, with this new hypothesis, what did he do? Did he pray for protection? Perform some kind of ritual? No way. He did something that sounds, well, incredibly modern. He conducted a rigorous, analytical, 16-point mental audit on himself. Seriously. He decided to take a full inventory of his own mind to see if he was pure enough to face the forest without accidentally summoning his own fear. He systematically goes through this kind of mental checklist, and you can really break it down into 4 main buckets. First up, his ethical foundation, making sure his actions, speech, and how he lived were pure. Then he checked his emotional state. Was he free from things like lust and anger? Third, mental clarity. Was his mind free from restlessness, doubt, and that heavy, sleepy feeling? And finally, this is a big one, cognitive humility. Was he free from the ego traps of praising himself and putting other people down? A truly deep psychological self-assessment. And what was the result of this whole audit? Well, after checking all 16 points and finding himself, pure, his conclusion was crystal clear. Now, this wasn't him being arrogant or cocky. It was a confidence that came from data. He realized that with no internal junk to project outward, the forest had no real power over him. A clear conscience became his shield. Okay, but that self-check, that was just the prep work. Now came the real experiment. Armed with his new confidence, he didn't just tolerate the forest. He went looking for the most terrifying conditions he could find. He went to creepy old shrines and burial grounds on nights that were supposed to be haunted, specifically to come face to face with his Bhayabheravasutta. He was running towards the fear. And this part is just so brilliant because it shows you exactly how fear works. Out there in the pitch black, it wasn't some ghoul that jumped out at him. It was the sound of a deer, a snapping twig, the wind in the leaves. Totally normal sounds. But his mind, which was primed for danger, immediately translated those sounds into, okay, here it comes. That's the mind right there, creating its own monsters out of basically nothing. So when that jolt of fear hit, what did he do? He used this technique of just radical non-reaction. It's like an ancient version of what we'd now call exposure therapy. If fear showed up while he was walking, he didn't freeze, he didn't run, he just kept walking, holding his posture and watching the feeling until it fizzled out. Same thing if he was standing. That wave of panic comes, but he doesn't sit down for comfort. He doesn't fidget or try to distract himself. He just stands there, meeting that raw feeling without changing a thing, until it was subdued. You see the pattern here? If fear came while he was sitting, he didn't jump up, he didn't lie down. He just kept sitting, holding his ground, not just physically, but mentally, until the feeling passed. And even while lying down, when you feel the most vulnerable, he didn't sit up, he didn't bolt, he just stayed put. In every single posture, the technique was the same. Meet the fear exactly as it is, without flinching, and you starve it of the reaction it needs to survive. And this incredible technique, it has a name, yathabhutam. It basically translates to just as it is. It's the practice of radical acceptance. Instead of fighting fear or resisting it or running from it, you just allow it to be there, observing it from whatever posture you're already in. You don't beat it with force, you subdue it by robbing it of its fuel, which is your reaction. But here's the thing, conquering fear wasn't even the final boss. It was the key that unlocked the next level. By purifying his mind and then making it rock solid by facing fear head-on, he achieved a level of concentration so profound that it started to unlock the very secrets of reality itself. And here is the ultimate reward for all that hard psychological work. In just one night, his mind, now perfectly sharp and stable, had these 3 massive breakthroughs. First, in the early part of the night, he recalled thousands of his own past lives in detail. Then, in the middle of the night, he gained this divine eye, seeing how the actions, or karma, of all beings shape their futures. And finally, as dawn was breaking, he got to the root of it all, destroying the mental taints, understanding suffering, and achieving total liberation. So why? Why go through all of this? Was it just some selfish quest for his own peace of mind? Well, when the Brahmin asks him why on earth he still hangs out in the forest even after becoming enlightened, his answer, it just reveals everything. He gives 2 reasons. The first, it's for his own well-being, to have a happy abiding right here and now. But it's the second reason that reframes the entire story. He did it, and continues to do it, out of compassion for future generations. This grueling internal work wasn't a selfish act. It was him hacking his way through the jungle of the mind to create a map, a blueprint, so that others, for thousands of years to come, could find their own way out. And that's what this all boils down to, really. This ancient blueprint suggests that fear isn't some monster lurking in the shadows, but an echo of our own unresolved inner stuff. It's the rustle of a leaf that our own guilt or anxiety turns into a predator. So the question this leaves us with is a really personal one. What are the snapping twigs in your life? What neutral everyday sounds is your mind turning into the coming of a monster you summoned yourself?